Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the explosive developments happening in Port Charles during the week of December 15 to 19, 2025, where shocking courtroom drama, pregnancy revelations, and dangerous fugitive situations collide to create some of the most intense moments fans have witnessed this season. The courtroom battle that could change everything. The spotlight this week shines directly on Willow as she faces what could be the most challenging ordeal of her entire life. The trial that has dominated Port Charles gossip for weeks is finally underway. And the stakes have never been higher for the young mother who finds herself fighting not just for her freedom, but for her very future with her children. The evidence that has been compiled against Willow appears damning on the surface, with prosecutors painting a picture that could convince even the most sympathetic jury members that she's guilty of serious wrongdoing. What makes this situation particularly heartbreaking is the stark reality that Willow's support system, while fiercely loyal and dedicated, remains painfully small in numbers. In a town where alliances shift like sand and friendships can evaporate overnight, Willow discovers that true friends are few and far between. When legal trouble comes knocking, the courtroom atmosphere is thick with tension, and every glance, every whispered conversation, and every piece of testimony carries the weight of potential life-changing consequences. The drama intensifies significantly on Tuesday when Michael Corinthos finds himself in an uncomfortable and emotionally charged encounter with his former wife Willow and the man who has become a controversial figure in this entire mess, Drew Cain. The meeting is described as frosty, which barely begins to capture the layers of betrayal, anger, and unresolved emotions swirling between these three individuals. Michael, who once believed he had a stable family and a future mapped out with Willow, now must confront the painful reality of their separation while watching her align herself with Drew. The very person many believe is at the center of this legal nightmare. Thursday brings a bombshell development that nobody in Port Charles sees coming. Nina Reeves, Willow's controversial mother-in-law, who has had a tumultuous relationship with her daughter-in-law over the years, takes the witness stand after calling in what sources describe as a significant favor. This appearance raises countless questions about Na's motivations and what exactly she plans to reveal under oath. Will Na use this opportunity to help Willow, or could she have ulterior motives that serve her own interests? Na's track record of complicated loyalties and surprising betrayals means that anything is possible when she takes that stand. The week reaches its dramatic conclusion on Friday when Detective Chase, who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes, makes not one but two shocking arrests. The timing of these arrests immediately raises speculation about whether they're directly connected to Willow's ongoing trial. If law enforcement has finally uncovered concrete evidence that Selena, who orchestrated the hit on Drew Cain, the entire case could be turned on its head in an instant. Such a revelation would mean authorities need to book both Selena, the powerful crime boss, with connections throughout Port Charles, and Curtis Ashford, whose involvement in the shooting has been whispered about but never proven. These arrests could provide the breakthrough Willow desperately needs, potentially exposing a conspiracy that goes far deeper than anyone imagined. A pregnancy filled with complications and questions. Meanwhile, in another corner of Port Charles, Portia Robinson finds herself navigating treacherous emotional waters after a health scare leads to a revelation that changes everything. The discovery that Portia is pregnant comes at the worst possible time, coinciding with medical complications that make this pregnancy high risk from the very beginning. What makes this situation exponentially more complex is the uncertainty surrounding the baby's paternity. A question that hangs over every decision and conversation moving forward. Isaiah, upon learning about Portia's condition and the risks involved, demonstrates remarkable character by committing himself to supporting both Portia and the unborn child throughout this dangerous pregnancy. His dedication appears unwavering regardless of whether he turns out to be the biological father, showing a level of maturity and compassion that stands in stark contrast to the chaos erupting elsewhere in Port Charles. This commitment speaks volumes about Isaiah's feelings for Portia and his willingness to step up during a crisis when many men might have walked away from such a complicated situation. Despite the connection and support Isaiah offers, Portia ultimately makes the difficult decision to go home with Curtis, choosing the stability of her existing marriage over the passion and understanding she's found with Isaiah. This choice doesn't diminish the bond between Portia and Isaiah. However, and next week, viewers will witness Isaiah making Portia what insiders describe as a significant offer, one that could change the trajectory of all their lives. The nature of this offer remains shrouded in mystery, but speculation runs rampant about whether it involves Isaiah proposing they raise the child together or perhaps offering to step aside completely to allow Portia's marriage to heal. Ultimately, Isaiah demonstrates his genuine care for Portia by supporting whatever decision she makes regarding her future, the pregnancy, and their relationship. This selfless attitude creates an emotionally complex triangle where there are no clear villains. Only people trying to navigate impossible circumstances while dealing with their own hearts and the potential life of an innocent child caught in the middle of adult complications. The dangerous game of hide and seek. On an entirely different front, the escaped fugitive Valentine Casadini continues to evade capture by hiding in plain sight at Carly's residence. This arrangement, while providing Valentine with temporary safety, creates enormous risk for Carly should authorities discover she's harboring a wanted man. The situation grows more precarious with each passing day as law enforcement intensifies their search and Valentine's daughter Charlotte becomes increasingly anxious about her father's safety and whereabouts. Lulu Spencer finds herself consumed with fear for her daughter Charlotte's well-being, knowing that Valentine's fugitive status could potentially put their child in danger or at minimum cause her significant emotional trauma. The stress of not knowing where Valentine might be or what he might do next weighs heavily on Lulu, who must balance her concern for Charlotte with her own complicated feelings about her ex-husband and his current predicament. Every phone call and unexpected visitor sends Lulu's anxiety spiking as she imagines worst-case scenarios. Wednesday brings a pivotal moment when Charlotte makes a confession that could have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved in this dangerous game. Sources suggest that Charlotte reveals to her cousin Rocco that she has received communication from her father, breaking the silence that has surrounded Valentine's location and activities. This admission puts Charlotte in an incredibly difficult position, torn between loyalty to her father and the legal and ethical implications of maintaining contact with a fugitive. The confession also places Rocco in an awkward situation, forcing the young man to decide whether to report this information to authorities or protect his cousin's secret. Friday's episode promises explosive confrontations when Valentine and Carly engage in what's described as a heated debate. The exact nature of their disagreement remains unclear, but possibilities include arguments about how long Valentine can safely remain hidden, whether he should turn himself in, or perhaps disagreements about his plans for securing permanent freedom. Carly, who has never been one to back down from a fight or avoid dangerous situations, likely pushes back hard against whatever course of action Valentine proposes, leading to fireworks between two of Port Charles's most stubborn and determined residents. Captivity and desperate plans for escape. Perhaps the most immediately dangerous situation unfolding involves the legendary Anna Dean, who remains completely unaware that her friends and colleagues believe she's simply away on assignment when the truth is far more sinister. Anna is being held captive on Spoon Island, imprisoned by the ruthless and cunning Sidwell, whose motivations and ultimate plans for his high-profile prisoner remain shrouded in mystery and menace. The isolation of Spoon Island makes Anna's situation particularly dire as screaming for help would be futile and any escape attempt carries enormous risk. Despite the desperate nature of her circumstances, Anna's decades of experience as a spy and her survival instincts kick into full gear as she slowly begins piecing together the puzzle of her abduction. Thursday's episode brings what could be a crucial turning point when Anna receives an unexpected diversion, a momentary distraction in Sidwell's otherwise tight security that might provide the opening she desperately needs. Whether this diversion comes from an outside source, a mistake by one of her captors, or sheer luck remains to be seen. But Anna proves once again why she's considered one of the most resourceful and dangerous people in Port Charles when she seizes the opportunity to attempt an escape. The coming week in Port Charles promises to deliver the kind of non-stop drama, emotional devastation, and shocking revelations that keep General Hospital fans glued to their screens day after day. From courtroom theatrics to pregnancy complications, from fugitive hideouts to island prisons, every storyline reaches critical mass simultaneously, creating the perfect storm of soap opera excellence that has made this show a daytime television institution for decades. Next, we will learn about the explosive situation unfolding in Port Charles as Valentine Casadini orchestrates one of the most daring escapes in General Hospital history. And the dangerous alliance he's forming with none other than Carly Corinthos Spencer that could reshape the entire power dynamic of the show. Valentine's dramatic return to Port Charles. The quiet streets of Port Charles were shaken when Valentine Casadini made his shocking return under the most dramatic circumstances imaginable. Appearing at Carly's doorstep, bloodied, bruised, and looking like he'd been through an absolute war. Valentine sent shockwaves through Carly's world. The details of his escape are the stuff of action movies while being transported to a maximum security U.S. prison facility. Valentine managed to overpower his captors mid-flight and executed a death-defying parachute jump from the aircraft. The level of planning and sheer audacity required for such an escape demonstrates just how resourceful and dangerous Valentine truly is when his back is against the wall. Landing somewhere in the outskirts of Port Charles, he made his way through back roads and alleyways to reach Carly's home. Knowing she was perhaps the only person who might understand his desperate situation and be willing to take the enormous risk of harboring him. When Carly opened her door to find Valentine in such a state, the shock on her face was palpable. Here was a man who had nearly killed her just months ago with polonium-tainted champagne. Yet something in his eyes and the urgency of his situation made her pause before slamming the door in his face. Valentine wasted no time explaining his intentions. He wanted to join forces with Carly to bring down their mutual enemy. Jack Brennan, the man who had manipulated, betrayed, and endangered everyone they cared about. The proposition was insane, reckless, and potentially deadly. But Carly found herself drawn to the idea of finally taking control and getting revenge on the man who had put her daughter Jocelyn in mortal danger. The complicated hiding arrangement. Carly's decision to hide Valentine wasn't made lightly, and she immediately voiced her concerns about becoming an accomplice to a fugitive. The legal ramifications alone could destroy everything she'd built: her businesses, her reputation, and potentially her freedom. However, Valentine, ever the smooth talker and master strategist, assured her that the authorities wouldn't dare search her home without substantial evidence. He reminded her of their shared history of survival and their mutual understanding that sometimes you have to break the rules to protect what matters most. His words struck a chord with Carly, who had previously hidden Jason Morgan during his fugitive days, demonstrating that she wasn't afraid to put herself on the line for people she believed deserved protection. The initial plan was to stash Valentine in the shed behind Carly's property, a temporary solution that would keep him out of sight while they formulated their strategy against Jack. The shed provided basic cover, though it was far from comfortable with its dusty boxes, old furniture, and minimal amenities. Valentine didn't complain. He'd survived worse conditions during his years as an international spy and mercenary. However, this arrangement was quickly compromised when Jocelyn unexpectedly showed up at the house, creating a massive complication in their carefully laid plans. Jocelyn's arrival wasn't coincidental. She was there on Jack Brennan's orders, sent to watch over her mother because both she and Jack believed Valentine had returned to Port Charles to finish what he started. The concern was legitimate. Valentine had nearly succeeded in killing Jack before with the polonium champagne incident, and it was only by sheer chance that Carly became the unintended victim instead. Jocelyn, now deeply entangled in Jack's world as a WSB recruit, felt a genuine responsibility to protect her mother from what she perceived as a lethal threat. Her protective instincts kicked into overdrive, and she made it clear she wasn't leaving Carly alone while a dangerous fugitive was on the loose. Thinking quickly, Jocelyn fabricated a story about wanting to give Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor some privacy after their emotional reunion, using this as her excuse to stay at the house. Carly immediately recognized the real reason for her daughter's presence and realized she needed to move Valentine to an even more secure location. The attic became the new hiding spot of cramped hot space filled with old family memories and forgotten belongings, but infinitely safer than the shed now that Jocelyn was patrolling the property. Valentine settled into his new quarters, understanding that comfort was secondary to survival. At this point, the brewing confrontation between old enemies. The history between Valentine Casadini and Jack Brennan runs deep and dark, forged in the shadowy corridors of the WASB, where they trained together as young recruits. These weren't just colleagues. They were brothers in arms who went through intense training programs designed to break ordinary men. They learned the arts of espionage, assassination, interrogation, and survival together, forming what should have been an unbreakable bond. However, ambition, different moral codes, and diverging paths eventually turned these once loyal friends into bare enemies who now want nothing more than to see each other dead. Both men eventually went rogue from the WSB, engaging in double-agent work that blurred the lines between patriotism and profit. They became key figures in Pikemen, the shadowy mercenary organization that operated outside international law and dealt in everything from weapons smuggling to political assassinations. The money was astronomical, but the risks were equally enormous. When the walls finally closed in on Pikemen, Valentine found himself on the run, eventually getting captured and imprisoned in the notorious Steinmau facility. Jack, meanwhile, managed to negotiate his way back into the WSB's good graces by agreeing to hunt down his former partner, creating the ultimate betrayal that Valentine will never forget or forgive. Now, with both men in Port Charles and Valentine hiding just blocks away from Jack's usual haunts, a confrontation is inevitable. These aren't men who back down or compromise. They're trained killers who've spent years perfecting the art of eliminating threats. When they finally come face to face, the resulting clash will be brutal, violent, and potentially fatal. Both men possess extensive combat training, knowledge of each other's weaknesses, and absolutely no moral qualms about killing someone they once considered family. The question isn't whether they'll fight, but rather who will walk away alive. Carly caught in the middle. The dynamic becomes exponentially more complicated and dangerous when Jack discovers that Carly has been working with Valentine behind his back. The sense of betrayal he'll feel will be overwhelming. The woman he cared about, perhaps even loved, has aligned herself with his mortal enemy, and has been lying to him for weeks. However, Jack's outrage rings hollow when you consider his own extensive deceptions. He recruited Jocelyn into the WSB without Carly's knowledge or consent, putting her teenage daughter in life-threatening situations to test her capabilities and eventually bring her into the spy world. He used Carly's daughter as bait to eliminate Cyrus Renault, showing a callous disregard for the safety of someone Carly holds more dear than her own life. Jack maintained this elaborate deception for an extended period, adding Jocelyn lie repeatedly to her mother while he manipulated events from the shadows. The hypocrisy of his potential anger toward Carly is staggering. He has no moral ground to stand on when it comes to accusations of dishonesty and betrayal. When the truth finally emerges that Carly has known about Jocelyn's WSB involvement for some time and has been playing along while secretly plotting with Valentine, Jack's world will crumble. The revelation that Carly disguised herself and held clandestine meetings with the man actively trying to kill him will shock Jack to his core. The situation becomes even more explosive when romantic feelings potentially develop between Carly and Valentine. The chemistry between them is undeniable to strong-willed, dangerous individuals who understand the gray moral areas where they both operate. Soap opera social media platforms have been buzzing with excitement about the possibility of Carly and Valentine becoming a couple, and the actors' natural chemistry makes this pairing incredibly compelling. If Carly does pursue a romantic relationship with Valentine, it will drive a final nail into any possibility of reconciliation with Jack and will fuel his rage to dangerous new levels. The deadly love triangle. Jack Brennan is not a man accustomed to losing, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. While he may not physically harm Carly out of some lingering affection or respect, the green-eyed monster of jealousy will consume him when he realizes she's chosen his enemy over him. The psychological warfare will intensify with Jack potentially using his WSB resources to make life difficult for both Carly and Valentine. However, Carly's biggest danger doesn't come from Jack's deliberate actions, but rather from being caught in the crossfire when Valentine and Jack inevitably clash. The polonium incident should serve as a stark reminder when these two men go after each other. Innocent people get hurt, and Carly nearly paid the ultimate price last time. The parallel between past and potentially future events is chilling. Paulentin's previous assassination attempt on Jack using polonium-laced champagne resulted in Carly becoming the unintended victim. spending weeks fighting for her life as the radioactive poison ravaged her system. That near-death experience should have taught everyone involved the dangers of these spy games. Yet, here they are again, setting up an even more volatile situation. This time, however, Carly is an active participant rather than an innocent bystander, which somehow makes the stakes even higher. Valentine's master plan. During his incarceration at Steinmau, Valentine wasn't simply marking time and waiting for rescue. He was planning, calculating, and preparing for exactly this moment. When Carly visited him in prison, something clicked in his mind. He saw an opportunity, a potential ally who had her own reasons to want Jack Brennan taken down. Valentine began coaching Carly on how to manipulate Jack, using her as his eyes and ears on the outside while he remained trapped behind bars. He knew Jack's weaknesses, particularly his growing feelings for Carly, and he exploited that knowledge ruthlessly. Valentine's escape wasn't a desperate last-minute decision. It was part of a carefully orchestrated plan that he'd been developing for months. Every detail was considered, from the timing of his prison transfer to the procurement of the parachute to the selection of Carly's home as his safe house. Now free and hidden in Port Charles, Valentine is ready to execute the final phases of his strategy. He has information that Jack desperately needs. Intelligence that could compromise numerous WSB operations and expose Jack's own criminal activities during their pikeman days. This information is Valentine's insurance policy and his ultimate weapon against his former friend, the question of survival. Speculation is running rampant about who will survive the inevitable showdown between Jack and Valentine. From a practical standpoint, Valentine appears to have the advantage in terms of fan popularity and actor appeal. James Patrick Stewart, who portrays Valentine, is beloved by the General Hospital fan base for his nuanced performance and the complexity he brings to the character. Killing off such a popular character would be a risky move that could alienate a significant portion of the viewing audience. However, soap operas are known for their shocking twists, and nothing is ever truly certain. Reliable sources have leaked information suggesting that Chris McKenna, the actor who plays Jack Brennan, may be departing General Hospital in the near future. If these rumors prove accurate, it would make narrative sense for Jack's character to meet his end through a confrontation with Valentine. This would provide a dramatic exit for the character while simultaneously resolving the ongoing conflict between these two dangerous men. The poetic justice of Jack being eliminated by the very person he betrayed would not be lost on longtime viewers. There's even more shocking possibility that fans are considering: what if Carly herself becomes Jack's executioner? Given everything Jack has put her through, particularly endangering Jocelyn's life, Carly would have substantial motivation to eliminate him permanently. If a situation arose where Jack threatened Valentine's life and Carly was forced to choose, she might pull the trigger to save the man who has been honest with her about his intentions rather than the man who manipulated her family for months. Such an action would forever bind Carly and Valentine together in a ride-or-die relationship that would be impossible to walk away from. The point of no return. Carly's relationship with Jack is beyond repair at this point. The foundation of trust has been completely shattered by his decision to recruit Jocelyn into the dangerous world of international espionage without Carly's knowledge or permission. The lies, the manipulation, and the blatant disregard for her wishes regarding her daughter's safety have created a chasm too wide to bridge. Carly's anger is righteous and justified, making her current alliance with Valentine feel like the natural progression of events rather than a betrayal. The irony of the situation is palpable. Carly now has an international spy and fugitive living in her attic, creating exactly the kind of dangerous scenario that Jack claimed he was protecting her from. Yet somehow, this arrangement feels more honest than anything Jack ever offered because Valentine has been upfront about his intentions and hasn't tried to manipulate her family members behind her back. The chemistry and mutual respect between Carly and Valentine continue to grow stronger as they spend more time together plotting Jack's downfall. As events accelerate toward their inevitable conclusion, Port Charles stands on the brink of witnessing one of the most explosive confrontations in General Hospital history. The combination of espionage, betrayal, romance, and revenge creates a perfect storm that will change multiple lives forever. Whether Jack Brennan meets his end through Valentine's hand, Carly's intervention, or some other twist of fate remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: when the dust settles, nothing in poor Charles will ever be the same again. Stay tuned for more updates as this thrilling storyline continues to unfold.